Most people assume weight loss stalls because they are lazy or because age has already sealed the door. But I have watched something quieter take control inside the body. A hidden brake that sits in the gut and the liver and tells every calorie to stay. The real shock is that an old plant compound used for centuries can help release that brake when we respect the science behind it. Before you hear another wild promise, here is the simple first step I give my own patients so that their effort finally counts tonight. With your evening meal, choose a portion of lean protein and a plate of non-starchy vegetables. Take your dose with the first bites, then walk at a comfortable pace for 10 to 15 minutes before you sit back down, because timing and movement change how your body uses fuel. In the clinic, I learned the hard way that the body does not reward shortcuts. This bright yellow alkaloid can nudge a master energy switch inside your cells, a survival lever that tells your system to use sugar and fat for fuel instead of locking them away. That is the promise. The risk is just as real. Swallowing a capsule is not enough, because much of the dose never reaches your bloodstream, and the small portion that does can still irritate a sensitive stomach or interact with certain prescription medicines if you are not careful. That is why I teach people to treat this compound like a helpful tool and not a miracle, to pair it with meals that steady blood sugar, and to talk with their clinician if they take medicines for blood sugar, blood pressure, or cholesterol. If you are over 45 and your waistline has crept forward, even while you eat less, you are not imagining the struggle. Liver fat builds quietly for years and behaves like a traffic jam on the only road out of town. Until your body clears that lane, it is hard to touch the inches you see in the mirror. That is why I am careful with this compound. It can help the liver handle incoming fuel, and it can soften the surge of glucose after a meal, but only if we let it reach its target, and only if we keep our daily habits simple and steady. Here is the honest balance that keeps people safe and hopeful. The upside is meaningful. Clinical research shows improvements in blood sugar control, triglycerides, and the type of cholesterol your doctor worries about. And there are encouraging signals for people living with fatty liver disease. It is also relatively affordable and does not require injections or frequent clinic visits, which matters for real life. The downside is that supplements are not tightly regulated, bioavailability is poor without a plan, and long-term safety data are still developing. So we move with care and we listen to the body. Knowing both sides is what keeps your progress steady instead of spiky. Let me earn your attention for the rest of this lesson by giving you one small win you can try tonight. With your evening meal, choose real food that looks like it grew from the ground or once had a face. Keep the portion sane, take your dose with those first bites, and step outside for a slow neighborhood walk. That pairing steadies the glucose wave, keeps insulin from shouting "store it," and encourages your cells to flip back into use it mode. It is not magic. It is physiology. When we work with it, progress begins to feel predictable, and that is how you build momentum without punishing your body. You may think that swallowing a capsule is the easy part, that once it slides past your tongue, the job is done. But the body has its own gatekeepers, and they are ruthless. I have seen patients take supplement after supplement, and months later sit across from me asking why nothing has changed. The truth is that without the right preparation, nearly all of the compound you just paid for never makes it past your gut wall. Imagine locking your paycheck in a safe and then tossing the key in the ocean. That is how berberine behaves when it meets your digestive tract. The lining of the intestine is designed to push unfamiliar molecules back out, and the liver breaks down most of what sneaks through. That is why research shows that as much as 99% can be wasted before it ever has a chance to work. The promise here is enormous, because when even a fraction enters your bloodstream, it lights up the same cellular switch that major diabetes drugs target, helping your system burn sugar and fat more efficiently. The risk is that you swallow capsule after capsule, waiting for change that never comes, while side effects like stomach upset still remind you that you took something. I know how discouraging that feels. Years ago, I guided a retired teacher who followed every instruction, walked each morning, cut back on bread, but her blood sugar hardly moved. Only when we looked closer did we realize the compound she trusted was simply not crossing the gate. That day taught me that the problem is not willpower, it is delivery. The good news is that there are ways to prime your system so the doors open wider and more of the active substance makes it into circulation. The balance of upside and downside here is stark. On one side, greater access to this compound means meaningful improvements in blood sugar, cholesterol, and liver fat that can finally reflect in the mirror. On the other side, neglecting the absorption problem means wasted money, lingering hope, and creeping frustration that can poison motivation itself. This is where the coming strategies matter, because by changing how your gut and your timing work, you can transform a nearly useless capsule into a reliable ally. Before we move on, I want you to hold one simple action in mind. Tonight, if you reach for any supplement, pair it with a meal you prepared at home instead of a quick processed bite, and notice how your body responds in the hours that follow. That awareness is the first step to turning wasted effort into measurable change. For years, I was taught that fat on the belly or hips was the enemy, yet the most dangerous storehouse sits hidden inside the liver, and most people never feel it building until blood tests or scans reveal the damage. That hidden fat acts like sludge poured into the fuel tank of your car, slowing every spark of metabolism and forcing the body to store more around the waist and under the chin. Here is where berberine becomes fascinating. Long before modern drugs were invented, healers used the yellow roots of barberry and golden seal for infections and digestion. Yet science now shows that the same pigment can touch a master switch inside our cells called AMPK. When that switch is on, your body burns sugar and fat for energy rather than packing them away. I have seen blood sugar readings drop by 20 to 30% in trials, and triglyceride levels fall by a similar margin. Cholesterol that clogs arteries has also been nudged downward. In weight studies, participants taking the compound lost more than twice what those on a dummy pill achieved. These numbers matter, but what matters even more is what patients feel. One woman in her late 50s came to me after years of frustration. Her scale barely moved despite dieting. We learned her liver was overloaded with fat. Within months of targeted use, her energy returned and her waistband eased. She told me it felt like someone had lifted a sandbag off her chest. That story stays with me because it captures both the promise and the caution. The promise is that activating this ancient switch can restore energy flow in a way no crash diet can mimic. The caution is that no pill replaces daily movement, balanced meals, or medical care. I remind my patients that the supplement is an ally, not a savior. The upside is powerful and natural. The downside is false hope if you expect miracles without habits. To bring this to life, imagine a dimmer knob on the wall. For many of us, the light of metabolism has been turned almost to zero. This compound does not install a new bulb, it simply helps twist the knob back upward so the room glows again. Tonight, notice how your body responds after dinner. Do you feel heavy and sluggish or light enough for a short walk? That awareness of your own dimmer switch is the first clue that your system is ready for change. I used to believe that if you took the right dose of a supplement, the rest was automatic. Yet the body has its own chemistry lab inside the gut, and unless that lab is thriving, most of the capsule goes to waste. Think of it like hiring a brilliant worker, but never giving them the tools to do the job. The gut bacteria and enzymes are those tools. And when they are missing, berberine cannot transform into the form that slips more easily into the bloodstream. That is why I often see people disappointed. They swallow the pill, they wait, but nothing moves. In fact, one of my patients, a 62-year-old grandfather, grew so frustrated he nearly gave up. When we looked deeper, we found his meals came from boxes and drive-through windows, starving the helpful bacteria he needed. Once he shifted to simple homemade foods, his body finally began to change, and he told me it felt like the supplement had suddenly woken up. The promise here is powerful. When the gut environment is rich in friendly bacteria and supported by the right digestive enzymes, absorption improves up to several times. and the compound can truly lower blood sugar and help the liver clear fat. The risk is equally clear. If you ignore the gut, you may be throwing money away and layering disappointment on top of the very stress that already drives weight gain. To nurture the gut, you do not need exotic products. Yogurt with live cultures, a spoon of sauerkraut or kimchi with dinner, or a glass of kefir in the morning bring billions of helpers into your system. A bowl of beans or berries supplies the fiber that keeps them alive. These are simple foods, not expensive potions, and they prepare the body to use what you swallow. The balance is that the right environment turns a weak tool into a strong ally, while the wrong environment makes even the best dose worthless. Tonight, take notice of what is on your plate. If every bite comes wrapped in plastic, your gut workers are starving. Replace just one side dish with something alive, and you may be shocked at how much difference that one choice makes. I once thought that if a capsule dissolved in the stomach, its contents would naturally seep into the bloodstream. But the gut is guarded like a nightclub with bouncers who turn away most guests. These bouncers are proteins whose job is to push foreign compounds back into the intestine, and berberine is one of their favorite targets. That is why so many people take it faithfully and still wonder why nothing happens. The good news is that nature has given us ways to distract those bouncers and slip more of the compound through the door. One patient of mine, a retired nurse, struggled for months with no change in her blood sugar. When we paired her supplement with a modest meal that contained healthy fats and a natural compound called quercetin from apples and onions, her numbers finally began to move. She told me it felt as if the door had finally opened. The promise here is remarkable. Studies show that when berberine is taken with certain helpers, absorption can improve several-fold, sometimes 5 or even 6 times greater, transforming a weak signal into a strong effect. The risk is just as important to respect. These same helpers can increase the absorption of prescription medicines, meaning a blood pressure pill or a diabetes drug may act more strongly than intended. That is why I insist that anyone considering this strategy talk with their clinician before mixing. The balance is clear. On the upside, the right partners help the compound enter the bloodstream where it can trigger fat burning and blood sugar control. On the downside, careless mixing can lead to dangerous interactions or side effects that overshadow any benefit. The practical takeaway is simple. Eat your supplement with a real meal, not on an empty stomach, and consider foods rich in quercetin or spices like turmeric that contain curcumin. These choices not only feed your palate, but also help the capsule do its job. Tonight, if you normally take a dose with just water, try it instead with a small plate that includes vegetables cooked in olive oil or a slice of apple on the side. Pay attention to how steady you feel in the hours afterward. That awareness teaches your body and your mind that small shifts in how you take something can decide whether it fails or finally works. When I first began using this compound with patients, I assumed more was better, that taking it every day without pause would build results like stacking bricks. Yet biology rarely works in straight lines. The body is designed to adapt, and if you give it the same signal over and over, it learns to mute the response. That is why many people notice progress for weeks, only to feel stuck again. The truth is that cycling matters. I encourage patients to use the supplement for a period ranging from a couple of weeks up to about 3 months, then take a break of several weeks before starting again. That pause resets the sensitivity of the switch inside your cells so that when you return, the effect feels fresh once more. One man in his early 60s followed this rhythm faithfully and told me he felt as though his body was being reintroduced to the compound each cycle, the way taste buds wake up after avoiding sugar for a while. Timing is just as critical as cycling. The compound does not remain active all day. It burns brightest for only 4 or 5 hours. If you take it right before a meal, it helps blunt the blood sugar rise and keeps insulin from locking calories into storage. If you take it 45 minutes before exercise, it partners with the natural boost of activity to flip metabolism into fat-burning mode more quickly. I advise spacing doses between morning and evening to cover more of the day without overwhelming the system at once. The promise of this approach is clear. When you respect both cycle and timing, you keep the effect strong, steady, and predictable. The risk of ignoring these rules is disappointment, wasted effort, or even digestive discomfort from taking too much at the wrong time. The balance is that a thoughtful rhythm allows you to enjoy the upsides without the plateaus. Tonight, notice when you usually take your supplements. If it is always at random or only once at noon, shift just one dose to 20 minutes before dinner and watch how your body feels afterward. That single adjustment may open your eyes to the power of timing. I have watched people do everything right, from adjusting their meals to walking daily, yet the scale refused to move, and the culprit was not willpower but worry. Stress releases cortisol, and high cortisol flips the very switch we have been trying to turn on, sometimes blocking as much as 40% of the effect. It is like trying to row upstream while a hidden current pushes you back. One woman in her late 50s told me she felt trapped. She prepared healthy food, kept her doses steady, but a season of caring for her ill husband left her exhausted and anxious. Her weight did not budge until we worked on her stress. That experience reminded me that metabolism does not live in the gut or liver alone. It listens to the mind as well. The promise here is profound. When cortisol is calmed, the supplement can do its work. Blood sugar steadies, fat-burning resumes, and energy returns. The risk is just as striking. Leave stress unchecked, and you may undo weeks of discipline in a single restless night. The balance is learning that peace is not a luxury but a tool. You cannot remove every burden, but you can train your body to let go of tension more quickly. Practical steps are simple yet powerful. 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night resets hormones more effectively than any pill. Slow breathing, 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out for just 1 minute, lowers cortisol almost immediately. A walk through your neighborhood lifts the heart without overwhelming the body. Nutrients like magnesium or calming herbs can help, but they are assistants, not replacements. What truly matters is building a rhythm of calm. Tonight as you settle in, notice how tightly your shoulders are clenched. Release them. Take 3 slow breaths, and ask yourself if this is how you want your body to spend the night. That single choice is a reminder that controlling stress is not about perfection, but about opening the door for your body to heal and burn fuel the way it was meant to. As I look back over the years with patience and with my own journey, one truth keeps surfacing. Change never comes from a miracle pill. It comes from the small, steady steps that remind your body it is still alive, still capable, still ready to respond. This compound is not magic. It is a partner, and when you give it the right setting with your food, your movement, your rest, and your peace of mind, it helps unlock the energy you thought was gone for good. I have seen men and women in their 60s and 70s reclaim the ability to walk farther, to breathe easier, to laugh without the weight of fatigue pressing down. I have watched their faces when the scale finally reflects their effort, not their frustration, and it is a look of freedom. The promise here is not a perfect body. It is a body that serves you instead of trapping you. The risk is only in waiting, in telling yourself it is too late. I can tell you as a physician who has sat at many bedsides that it is never too late to begin again. Tonight, you have a choice. Will you keep doing what leaves you stuck? Or will you change one small thing, maybe the timing of a dose, the food on your plate, or the way you breathe before sleep? Those shifts build, and they stack into lasting strength. I want to hear from you, because your story may be the encouragement someone else needs. Have you ever tried a supplement and felt discouraged when nothing happened? Or have you made a small change that surprised you with real results? Share it in the comments. We are a community of people proving that progress is still possible and that truth is worth repeating. So join the conversation. Subscribe if you want more of these insights, and pass this along to a friend who needs hope tonight. Remember, small changes stack up, and the best time to begin is now.